Most guys who get Ice Guy'd wake up with a legendary weapon or a broken, overpowered ability. Our guy woke up with none of that. And we do mean none of it. He was a black-haired young man, standing half naked in the middle of nowhere. The last thing he remembered was getting electrocuted. Then he woke up here. He was in another world. He looked around and saw a settlement filled with buildings he didn't recognize. Everything felt completely different from his world. He was about to start his adventure when he glanced down and realized something was missing. His D was gone. He dug through the dirt, shook a nearby tree, even patted his own back. Nothing. He grabbed his head and screamed at the sky, demanding answers from whatever god sent him here without his most prized possession. No answer came. He dropped to the ground, completely devastated. He started wondering if it had already been missing before he died. He tried retracing his memories, the public urination incident, the people who threatened him, the bath where it might have slipped off, the taxi ride where it could have fallen out. After thinking it through, he reached one conclusion. It stayed behind in his original world. He took a breath and tried to calm down. He checked what else survived the trip with him. The answer was not much. No clothes. No artifact. Just him and one very specific problem. Then a strange thought crossed his mind. What if this world simply didn't require clothes or AD? Maybe that was just the standard here. He walked toward the nearest village gate with full confidence. He walked far enough to see that every single person inside was fully clothed. He turned around and ran back into a nearby haystack. Hiding behind the straw, he spotted a clothesline nearby. He grabbed a piece of fabric, covered his lower half, and walked back through the gate like nothing happened. Everyone was wearing clothes. That part was confirmed. But he still wasn't ready to accept the full conclusion. Clothes didn't prove anything by themselves. For all he knew, the situation under those clothes was exactly the same as his. He needed actual evidence before committing to any theory. He was still thinking about this when a girl nearby suddenly screamed and pointed in his direction. He panicked, covered himself, and bolted. Turns out she wasn't pointing at him. A massive purple creature crashed to the ground right behind him. It had been caged for a long time and was absolutely furious. The people around them started to panic, convinced this monster was the Demon King himself. The creature roared and threatened to take revenge on everyone present. Its name was Xiaopang, a bronze-ranked air-type Demon King. Everyone in the area should have been terrified. Our guy was not terrified. His eyes locked onto something between Xiaopang's legs. His face went pale. His jaw dropped. He stood completely still, not out of fear, but out of pure shock at what he was seeing. Xiaopang kept screaming about his power and his revenge. Our guy wasn't listening at all. Right as Xiaopang was about to unleash his finishing move, the fabric covering our guy slipped and fell. Everything was exposed. Xiaopang stopped and burst out laughing. He had never seen a guy with absolutely nothing down there. He found it completely hilarious. But while he was still laughing, a massive punch landed straight on his face and sent him flying across the city. The explosion lit up every corner of the street. Buildings crumbled and debris flew everywhere. The man who threw that punch was Harold. He was a large, muscular man wearing iron armor. He turned to our guy and asked if he was all right. Our guy quickly pulled the fabric back up and nodded. He was fine. From the smoking remains of Xiaopang, a blinding purple light appeared. It formed into a jagged purple sword, which Harold grabbed and held with ease. He turned to face the crowd and introduced himself as the head captain of the Night Order of the Great Roar Kingdom. The crowd relaxed when they heard this. The entire Demon King incident was just a royal training simulation. Nothing was actually in danger. Harold then made an announcement. The kingdom was holding a free attribute check for all citizens. Anyone found with a divine-level attribute would receive a heavenly artifact as a reward. He raised his fist and told everyone to step up, become heroes, and have all their wishes granted. The crowd went wild. People started lining up one by one. Eventually, it was our guy's turn. He placed his hand on the crystal stone and waited nervously. The examiner looked at the crystal and told him straight. His attribute was terrible. His official registered attribute was no D. He clenched his fist and grabbed his own hair. This was not the result he was hoping for. He walked away from the crowd with his shoulders slumped. Before he could get far, a wolf-eared man named Hagutu stopped him. Hagutu told him that nothing in this kingdom was free. Anyone with a strong attribute would be forced into a death hunt on Demon King Mountain. The monsters there were far more dangerous than Xiaopang. He also said the heavenly artifact being promised was basically worthless junk. Our guy wasn't listening. He was too busy thinking about his missing D. Hagutu kept pitching his goods anyway, pulling out a catalog with a big smile and asking what our guy wanted. Our guy almost let slip exactly what he was looking for. He caught himself just in time and changed the subject. He asked if the catalog was connected to Hagutu's attribute. Hagutu pulled a yellow card from his pocket. His attribute was storage. Our guy accepted the card, which turned out to be an ID. He stared at it with a tired expression. There was so much about this world he didn't understand yet. Catalogs appearing from thin air. Demon kings turning into weapons after death. An attribute system that just told him he was missing something fundamental. Hagutu was still enthusiastically showing off his inventory. Our guy was already done with the conversation. He headed toward the nearest residential area to find a public bathroom. Our guy stood in front of the bathroom door and made a silent vow to himself. If the people of this world also had nothing down there, he was ready to declare all-out war on this ice sky. He took a deep breath and walked in. His eyes landed on a blue-haired man standing nearby. He slowly crept closer, convinced that one quick glance would settle everything once and for all. Before he could see anything, the blue-haired man spun around and punched him straight in the face. The two of them crashed out of the bathroom. The blue-haired man grabbed his pants and unleashed a string of curses. His name was QGG. He was already having the worst day of his life. His parents were disappointed in him. His girlfriend had just broken up with him, and the attribute test had given him a terrible result. Getting nearly peeped on by another guy was the last thing he needed. Our guy wasn't really listening. He was too busy staring at one thing. QGG still had his D, and that hurt more than the punch. QGG's anger hit its peak. He summoned a heavenly artifact from his palm. A jagged purple sword appeared in a blaze of purple light. He declared that he would become a hero and defeat the Demon King. He then proceeded to use our guy as his punching bag. Our guy stood there taking it, completely lost in his own misery. He had made it to another world. But the most important part of him hadn't made the trip. He stared at his own palm and imagined what kind of power might be hiding inside him. He clenched his fist. He struck a dramatic pose. He shouted that he would show everyone the terrifying power born from losing the most important thing in his life. A blinding burst of yellow light exploded from his hand. It looked exactly like a legendary artifact summoning. He swung his arm dramatically to reveal his heavenly weapon. It was a dull meat cleaver. His expression collapsed immediately. He stared at the rusty blade in his hand with a single tear running down his face. After a closer look, he recognized it. It was his mom's kitchen knife from his original world. Before he could process this, QGG swung his sword at him. Our guy dodged it easily. QGG swung again, even more determined. But before the blade could reach him, our guy landed a devastating kick that sent QGG flying straight into the stone wall behind him. QGG hit the ground hard, covered in bruises. Our guy stood over him, completely calm, and was about to deliver the final hit when a voice called out from behind him. "Don't rush." Something pulled our guy back and stopped his attack. He turned around with an irritated look, wanting to know who had interfered. It was a pale-skinned man wearing a yellow outfit with long, bright hair. On the other side, QGG was now sobbing on the ground. His pain got even worse when he realized something. The blanket our guy had been using to cover his lower half this entire time belonged to him. In the middle of all this, Hagutu the wolf merchant suddenly appeared with a stack of promotional brochures. He announced that after a battle training session like this, every attribute would have its own market value. He told everyone to buy his guidebook, while the buy 3 get 1 free promo was still running. Our guy ignored him completely and turned his attention to the pale yellow-haired man standing in front of him. Then a man said something that stopped our guy cold. He asked if our guy wanted to know where his D was. Our guy's eyes went wide. He had no idea how this stranger could possibly know about that. Before he could say anything, The man spread both his arms wide. A wave of energy swept through the area and transformed everything around them into a vast space of blue-purple light. It felt like they had been pulled into an entirely different dimension. The man told our guy to stay calm. He then revealed his true identity. His name was Wuhua. He was the god who created this world. Our guy's jaw dropped. Then came the real bombshell. His missing D had not simply disappeared. It had evolved and transformed into the most powerful demon king in this dimension. God Wuhua explained it with a proud expression on his face. If our guy, whose real name turned out to be Huang Mizo, could defeat the strongest demon king, he could wish for anything he wanted. And that strongest demon king was his D. To demonstrate, Wuhua summoned a tiny monster from his palm. The little creature, nicknamed the Fart Demon King, spun around in circles, making loud noises. Mizo stared at it in complete disbelief. Wuhua smiled and explained how this ice sky worked. He had given every person in this world an attribute that connected to their unique abilities. Everyone had received one from him, including Mizo. Wuhua seemed to find Mizo's situation genuinely amusing. Mizo did not find it amusing at all. He still couldn't understand why, out of everything on his body, it had to be that specific part that got turned into a demon king. Wuhua answered without any guilt whatsoever. It was simply a beautiful misunderstanding. When Mizo crossed dimensions, Wuhua had accidentally mistaken it for a suitable base model for the strongest demon king. So he took it. Mizo looked like he was about to attack a god. Wuhua then revealed the true form of the strongest demon king. Mizo stared at it for a moment, then immediately started panicking. He demanded to know where his D was right now and where that demon king had gone. Wuhua calmly explained how the ice sky system worked. When a demon king died, it transformed into a heavenly artifact. That artifact was what allowed a person to use the magical abilities connected to their attribute. Herald the Night was a simple example. His attribute was explosion, and his ability was an explosive punch. Mizo just stood there frowning through the entire explanation. The only thing he wanted to know was what had happened to his D. Wuhua ignored this and kept talking. He explained that he had created Demon King Mountain, which had 10 floors. Each floor had its own cave and its own boss. Mizo would need to defeat the boss on each floor to advance to the next level. Mizo kept trying to interrupt and ask about his D. Wuhua kept going. He explained that the strongest demon king was waiting at the very top floor. If Mizo could defeat it, everything he had lost would come back to him immediately. Mizo completely lost his temper and started cursing at the god who wouldn't stop talking. Mizo wasn't having any of it. He demanded to know why he had to go through all this trouble. He came to another world expecting to show off his power, slap enemies around, be surrounded by beautiful women, and enjoy life with his D. That was the deal. Wuhua fired back without hesitation. He reminded Mizo that the whole thing was an accident and that Mizo hadn't been listening at all. If he wanted his D back, he could climb the mountain himself. Plenty of people in this world dreamed of challenging the strongest demon king. Mizo just stood there complaining without any ambition. Mizo's brain started working fast. If everyone in this dimension was trying to kill the strongest demon king, that meant anyone could get their hands on his D. Wuhua snatched back the miniature demon king model and confirmed exactly that. Mizo's eyes went wide. Anyone who defeated the final boss could make any wish to the god and automatically claim his D. He started piecing everything together. The attribute system, summoning artifacts, using abilities. Then he asked why he could only summon a kitchen knife. Wuhua explained without any guilt. Because Mizo was a transmigrator, he couldn't receive a divine blessing. He would never be able to use any magical abilities. Mizo stared at the dull meat cleaver in his hand. Wuhua raised his hand and continued. But there was a special ability he had given Mizo instead. Unlike the locals, Mizo could summon any object he had ever touched in his previous life. Mizo tested it immediately. It worked perfectly. Satisfied, Wuhua announced that their business was settled and prepared to leave. Mizo immediately protested. He was supposed to be living the good life as the main character. Instead, he had lost his most valuable asset. He asked Wuhua for at least some basic guidance, since he had no idea about the races and rules of this world. Wuhua's warm expression vanished instantly. His eyes turned red and his killing intent filled the air. He told Mizo not to think he was special just because he came from another world. If it weren't for the D incident, he wouldn't have spoken to him at all. Wuhua then dropped into a strange pose and declared that this ice guy was his game. Everything had to be fair. He grabbed the Fart Demon King and forced Mizo to kill it. The tiny monster kept calling Wuhua Dad. Mizo hesitated. He had never killed anything in his life and couldn't bring himself to hurt something that small. Wuhua smirked and gave him an ultimatum. If he couldn't kill a weak little monster like this, he had no chance of getting his D back. That was enough. Mizo swung his meat cleaver without hesitation. The Fart Demon King died instantly and transformed into a bright yellow crystal. Wuhua told Mizo to take the bronze-tier heavenly artifact and exchange it for some pocket money. Their business was done. Wuhua's body slowly dissolved into a blinding golden light. Before disappearing completely, he left one final warning. He told Mizo that he was God Wuhua, the creator of every mountain, river, and light in this world. Mizo was forbidden from telling anyone about his existence. Wuhua would be watching from above. It was time to start his adventure. Without any warning, Mizo dropped straight out of the sky and landed somewhere in the middle of a yellowed grassland. He picked himself up and thought about everything that had just happened. All he had wanted was to get his D back. Now he had a mountain to climb, a god watching him, and a kitchen knife as his only weapon. At least he wasn't completely naked anymore. Mizo's attention shifted to a metal drain cover sitting in the middle of the grassland for no apparent reason. He walked over and stared at it, confused about why something from his old world had ended up here. He opened it anyway. His body got sucked in immediately and teleported to a completely different location. He reached out and grabbed the nearest barrier to steady himself. Right next to him was something that looked like a zombie, wandering around and blocked only by a wall of giant roots. Mizo held on tight and didn't move. Then he remembered what Wuhua had warned him about. He had probably just wandered into a Demon King cave. Before he could figure out what to do, a man in iron armor appeared behind him and immediately called him deadweight. The man had pink hair, an arrogant attitude, and a very dramatic way of carrying himself. His name was Martin. He looked down at Mizo and told him to follow every order if he wanted to make out alive. Mizo couldn't believe that even inside a monster den, he was getting bullied by someone pulling rank. He kept his cool and asked if a zombie nearby was the boss of this area. Martin laughed and told him he was completely clueless. The zombie was just a regular corpse mutated by the boss monster's poison. Martin then asked about Mizo's attribute to figure out whether he was useful enough to use as bait. At that moment, a burst of golden light exploded from thin air, and a small winged cat appeared. The cat landed, stared at Mizo, and immediately ordered him to kill Martin. Martin stood there in shock. The cat turned to Martin with an irritated look and was about to say something when a massive punch flew out of nowhere and hit Martin. The winged cat spun around and glared at Mizo. It told him that it had only ordered Mizo to throw the punch, not join in itself. Mizo panicked and started firing questions. He wanted to know who this cat was and how it knew about his missing D. The cat crossed its arms and introduced itself as an avatar of God. It was a high-level existence whose true form was beyond human comprehension. It declared that it would faithfully accompany Mizo on his entire journey to find what he had lost. Before the cat could say anything more, Mizo immediately covered its mouth. He theorized that this cat was probably some kind of guide system like in web novels. The cat brushed that off completely. God avatars were only witnesses. They were strictly forbidden from interfering or helping directly. This adventure was Mizo's to complete alone. Mizo then asked where exactly they were right now. The cat explained that they were inside a Demon King cave, but still outside the actual Demon King mountain territory. Mizo thought back to the drain cover and asked why something like that was sitting in the middle of an open grassland. The cat explained that what they had passed through was called a door. It was the only way to enter a Demon King cave. Each door had a specific route that transported people to a different cave. The cat then proudly announced that it had personally designed all of these doors and considered them works of art. Mizo crossed his arms and told the cat that its idea of artistic design was basically just a torture device. The cat pointed directly at Mizo's face with its eyes burning red. It insisted that every entrance to a Demon King cave had been crafted with a highly varied architectural design. The cat told Mizo he would see the door designs for himself eventually. No amount of explanation would make his limited brain understand right now. Mizo nervously scratched his cheek. He was starting to worry this mini-god might just kill him on the spot. The cat immediately smiled and denied it. It claimed to be the friendliest NPC in existence and strictly forbidden from doing anything outside the script of this Ice Sky game. Mizo relaxed slightly and asked how to escape their current situation. The cat explained there were two options. First, kill the Demon King ruling this cave. Second, find a hidden exit. For their current situation, Mizo would have to figure out the second option on his own. The cat told him to show off his abilities. Mizo thought for a moment, then summoned a bright pink chainsaw. He was convinced it looked incredibly intimidating. The cat immediately recited the chainsaw's full product name with perfect accuracy. Mizo's jaw dropped. He asked how the cat possibly knew that. The cat replied flatly that it was an avatar of God and God knew everything. Mizo grabbed the chainsaw and pulled the cord. Nothing happened. The cat pointed out that an old machine like that needed to be plugged into a power source to work. Mizo threw the chainsaw to the ground. There was no power outlet anywhere in a place like this. Out of options, he resorted to the most primitive solution available and started screaming for help toward the cave entrance. A few moments later, something actually responded. 3 large fish monsters and 1 small yellow creature without pants walked in. The yellow creature confidently introduced itself as Xiao. Mizo stared in silence. Not a single normal human had answered his call. His eyes then locked onto something very specific about the yellow creature that made him deeply uncomfortable. Martin, who had apparently recovered, jumped in and explained the situation. The 3 fish creatures were locals from the nearest river. The small yellow one was a permanent resident of this cave. Martin then smiled proudly and introduced himself as the son of a knight commander in the Great Roar Kingdom, as if this was the perfect moment for that information. Mizo stared at him. Martin kept going, cheerfully declaring himself Mizo's official disciple. He apologized for underestimating Mizo earlier and concluded that Mizo had obviously been hiding his true power all along, carrying only a bronze artifact just to mess with arrogant people like himself. He was also clearly backed by a magical fairy companion. Martin enthusiastically pointed at the winged cat and was about to introduce it with some grand divine title. The cat immediately pinched Mizo's cheek hard and demanded a fake name to protect its identity. From that moment on, the cat was officially named Shinjin. Martin gave 2 thumbs up and declared that Shinjin sounded powerful, charismatic, and carried an aura of disaster. A vein appeared on the avatar of God's forehead. Mizo grabbed the cat's tail just in time before it could land a divine punch straight into Martin's face. He quickly told Martin to ignore the cat's reaction. Mizo decided to focus on something more useful. He asked Martin about his attribute to figure out the fastest way out of this cave. Martin proudly revealed that his secret attribute was fireworks. His plan was to burn all the roots, trapping them, and escape before the zombie got promoted to official cave boss. He extended his fingers and produced a tiny spark. It looked more like a dying lighter than actual magic. Mizo stared at it with a raised eyebrow. Not to be outdone, he mimicked Martin's pose and summoned a real lighter from his previous world. Martin's eyes lit up with pure admiration. He was now completely convinced that his master was a chosen one backed by a divine fairy. He begged Mizo to teach him the secret technique of instant fire summoning. Mizo grinned. He was about to tell Martin that the only requirement was losing his D. Shinjin's paw landed directly on his face before he could say a word. Somehow in the middle of all this, they had already escaped from the root cage. Mizo was now running toward a zombie wandering nearby with his fist ready. He had no idea how Ice Sky zombies worked, so he went with the most straightforward approach. Kill it before it became a problem later. He had planned to summon his meat cleaver, but changed his mind at the last second and called out a massive iron axe instead. It looked far more impressive. The zombie swung at him. Mizo dodged it easily. He raised the axe high and struck a cool pose, telling Shinjin to witness his first real combat moment. Right before the axe connected, the zombie's arms and legs suddenly swelled and stretched outward in every direction. The axe flew out of Mizo's hands. The zombie's body convulsed and let out a pained howl. Mizo's attention shifted to a shadow behind the monster. A small cute girl in a witch outfit stepped out holding a blue crystal staff. She was from a race called the Poo-Poo Tuner and was looking at the suffering zombie with a sympathetic expression. The scene shifted to an open field outside. 3 figures were in the middle of a serious conversation. 2 large, intimidating creatures were kneeling respectfully before a small being sitting casually on top of a giant rock. The small creature spoke with authority. It had been half a year since it left Demon King Mountain to personally inspect the monster caves in this area. It turned to the 2 demons kneeling before it and asked for confirmation. Was this Demon King cave really under Kankamo's control? The muscular Demon King named Kankamo nodded. The small yellow demon beside him added that Kankamo had been the one who gave it shelter after it had been wandering around with nowhere to go. The small creature nodded and said it had no issue with Kankamo's decision, but it gave a firm warning about the rules of this world. If any mortal ever challenged this cave, Kankamo would be required to step up as the final boss. This was an absolute rule created by God Wuhua that could never be broken. Kankamo looked slightly awkward. He hadn't expected someone of this rank to personally visit a remote cave like this. The small yellow demon urged its king to return quickly. Multiple hero groups had already started attacking their territory. The muscular demon also pleaded for its king to get back to the center of Demon King Mountain as soon as possible. The small creature waved its hand casually and smiled. From now on, it told them they no longer needed to call it king. The small horned creature smiled proudly and gave the most unexpected answer possible. From now on, it wanted to be called the D. Back inside the Dark Demon King cave, Mizo and his group were running for their lives. The blue-robed witch girl who had just joined them looked at Mizo with a judging expression. She asked why he had tried to kill the mutated creature earlier. To her, they were just innocent beings who had no choice in what they became. Mizo defended himself simply. It was the only solution that came to mind. He had no idea that just cutting off their limbs would have been enough to stop them. While they were still running, Xiaochu, the small yellow creature, started talking about its village. Through tears, it explained that the Demon King's evil aura had invaded its home and turned almost everyone into zombies. Its father, the strongest warrior in the village, had willingly let himself get infected by the demon's poison just to protect Xiaochu. With teary eyes, it asked the group to help save him. The witch girl agreed immediately. She declared she would help in the name of God Wuhua. The entire group came to a sudden stop when they heard that name. The girl composed herself and introduced her identity. Her name was Putao. She was an official envoy from the Heavenly Believers' Kingdom, a nation of devoted followers of God Wuhua. Shinjin stepped in as a walking encyclopedia. He explained that the Heavenly Believers' Kingdom was an extreme religious state where every citizen worshipped God Wuhua. Rumor had it that some of the kingdom's top figures had actually met the god in person, though no solid proof existed. Mizo casually mentioned that he personally had proof of that. Putao immediately fired back and insisted her god was completely real. She told them about a disaster that hit her when she was young. She had been trapped under collapsed ruins for 3 days and 3 nights with no rescue in sight. Just as she was about to give up, she prayed to God Wuhua for the first time. The rubble lifted on its own and she was saved. From that moment on, her faith never wavered. She had dedicated herself to spreading his teachings so others could experience the same. After Putao finished, the 3 mutant fish immediately tried to share their own sad backstories. Mizo cut them off before they could start. He had no interest in sitting through another round of tragic origin stories. Pu Tao raised her staff and offered to convert Mizo to the faith of God Wuwa. Mizo turned her down flat. He poked Shinjin's chubby cheek and said that even if her god existed, he was clearly stingy and had no interest in getting involved in small human problems. Pu Tao pushed back and argued that God Wuwa would naturally be more sympathetic to people with tragic pasts, meaning miracles would come more easily to them. While the two of them argued, Martin, Xiaochu, and the three fish started fighting among themselves over who got to share their sad story first. Shinjin pointed directly at Mizo and demanded he tell everyone the tragic story of his missing D. Nobody noticed that they were completely surrounded. Pu Tao was the first to sense it. She immediately got into a defensive stance. Two mutated creatures dropped from the rooftop above and dove straight toward the ground. One of them was heading directly for Pu Tao. Mizo wasn't fast enough to block the attack cleanly. He deflected it with the bottom of a frying pan he summoned from his previous world. He followed up by pulling out a bucket and jamming it straight onto the head of one of the corrupted creatures. Then he kicked it hard and sent it flying through the air. On the other side, Martin was struggling badly. He screamed for his master to save him. Mizo quickly poured oil all over the monster attacking Martin. Pu Tao followed up with a powerful magic attack that burned it down completely. The creature was defeated in seconds. Mizo had to physically hold Martin back to keep him from getting caught in Pu Tao's attack. Martin complained that his whole body was now covered in oil and extremely slippery. Mizo patted his shoulder and told him his abilities were basically useless in a place like this. The three mutant fish were still struggling to take down another creature nearby. Before the group could catch their breath, Xiaochu got grabbed by one of the enemies. The small creature wriggled and called out for help. Mizo threw his large axe straight at the monster holding Xiaochu. A giant hand appeared out of nowhere and caught it. A much larger and more terrifying mutated creature had just arrived. Xiaochu's eyes went wide with shock. The creature standing before them was its own father, a warrior from a shape-shifting race, now fully mutated. Xiaochu's father grabbed the axe and launched a counterattack. He moved instantly and appeared right in front of Mizo, ready to strike. The axe vanished from his hand before he could swing it. Items summoned by Mizo belonged exclusively to him and couldn't be used by anyone else. Unable to strike, the massive creature kicked Mizo hard between the legs instead. Mizo's eyes went blank from the impact. Every male in the group immediately cringed in sympathy. Then Mizo smiled and laughed quietly to himself. An attack like that had no effect on him. Martin stared with even more admiration than before, now fully convinced his master was immune to the most devastating attack known to man. While the battle continued, Pu Tao quietly moved around to the back of Xiaochu's father. She pressed her staff against the creature's skin and began casting her spell. The magic bounced back and hit Mizo instead. His face immediately became much younger looking, and his hair grew out rapidly into a thick long mane. Pu Tao rushed over with a guilty expression. She explained that her class attribute was recovery, useful for healing and restoration. But she still hadn't figured out how to control it properly. That was why his hair had grown out instead of helping. Her expression grew more troubled as she admitted something. She was still afraid to use her ability directly on living beings. The conclusion was clear. Pu Tao's magic was actually powerful enough to reverse mutations and restore damaged bodies. She just couldn't control it yet. Mizo trimmed his overgrown hair with a pair of scissors and muttered that this was apparently the price of trusting God Wuwa. Pu Tao immediately denied that. She insisted that attributes were pure blessings from above, and she wanted everyone to appreciate their own abilities. While they argued, the three mutant fish were still trying to corner Xiaochu's father, who refused to go down. Then things got worse. A large group of corrupted monsters appeared from behind the massive creature, ready to swarm the entire group.